The Sydney Opera House is a multi-venue performing arts centre in Sydney. Located on the banks of Sydney Harbour, it is widely regarded as one of the world's most famous and distinctive buildings and a masterpiece of 20th century architecture. Designed by Danish architect Jorn Utzon, but completed by an Australian architectural team headed by Peter Hall, the building was formally opened on the 20th of October 1973 after a gestation beginning with Utzon's 1957 selection as winner of an international design competition. The Government of New South Wales, led by the Premier, Joseph Cahill, authorised work to begin in 1958 with Utzon directing construction. The government's decision to build Utzon's design is often overshadowed by circumstances that followed, including cost and scheduling overruns as well as the architect's ultimate resignation. The building and its surrounds occupy the whole of Bennelong Point on Sydney Harbour, between Sydney Cove and Farm Cove, adjacent to the Sydney Central Business District and the Royal Botanic Gardens, and near to the Sydney Harbour Bridge. The building comprises multiple performance venues, which together host well over 1,500 performances annually, attended by more than 1.2 million people. Performances are presented by numerous performing artists, including 3 resident companies: Opera Australia, the Sydney Theatre Company and the Sydney Symphony Orchestra. As one of the most popular visitor attractions in Australia, the site is visited by more than 8 million people annually, and approximately 350,000 visitors take a guided tour of the building each year. The building is managed by the Sydney Opera House Trust, an agency of the New South Wales state government. On the 28th of June 2007, the Sydney Opera House became a UNESCO World Heritage Site, having been listed on the now defunct Register of the National Estate since 1980, the National Trust of Australia Register since 1983, the City of Sydney Heritage Inventory since 2000, the New South Wales State Heritage Register since 2003, and the Australian National Heritage List since 2005. The Opera House was also a finalist in the new 7 Wonders of the World campaign list. Planning began in the late 1940s when Eugene Goossens, the director of the New South Wales State Conservatorium of Music, lobbied for a suitable venue for large theatrical productions. The normal venue for such productions, the Sydney Town Hall, was not considered large enough. By 1954, Goossens succeeded in gaining the support of New South Wales Premier Joseph Cahill, who called for designs for a dedicated opera house. It was also Goossens who insisted that Bennelong Point be the site. Cahill had wanted it to be on or near Wynyard Railway Station in the northwest to the Central Business District. An international design competition was launched by Cahill on the 13th of September 1955 and received 233 entries, representing architects from 32 countries. The criteria specified a large hall seating 3,000 and a small hall for 1,200 people, each to be designed for different uses, including full-scale operas, orchestral and choral concerts, mass meetings, lectures, ballet performances, and other presentations. The winner, announced in 1957, was Danish architect Jorn Utzon. Utzon's design was rescued by Finnish-American architect Eero Saarinen from a final cut of 30 rejects. The runner-up was a Philadelphia-based team assembled by Robert Geddes and George Qualls, both teaching at the University of Pennsylvania School of Design. They brought together a band of Penn faculty and friends from Philadelphia architectural offices, including Melvin Brecker, Warren Cunningham, Joseph Marzella, Walter Wiseman, and Leon Lashetter. Geddes, Brecker, Qualls, and Cunningham went on to found the firm GBQC Architects. The grand prize was £5,000. Utzon visited Sydney in 1957 to help supervise the project. His office moved to Palm Beach, Sydney in February 1963. After the resignation of Utzon, the Minister for Public Works, Davis Hughes, and the government architect, Ted Farmer, organized a team to bring the Sydney Opera House to completion. The architectural work was divided between 3 appointees who became the Hall, Todd, Littlemore Partnership. David Littlemore would manage construction supervision, Lionel Todd contract documentation, while the crucial role of design became the responsibility of Peter Hall. Peter Hall, 1931-1995, completed a combined arts and architecture degree at Sydney University. Upon graduation, a travel scholarship enabled him to spend 12 months in Europe, during which time he visited Utzon in Helbeek. Returning to Sydney, Hall worked for the Government Architect, a branch of the NSW Public Works Department. While there, he established himself as a talented design architect with a number of court and university buildings, including the Goldstein Hall at the University of New South Wales, which won the Sir John Sulman Medal in 1964. Hall resigned from the Government Architect's Office in early 1966 to pursue his own practice. When approached to take on the design role, after at least two prominent Sydney architects had declined, Hall spoke with Utzon by phone before accepting the position. Utzon reportedly told Hall, Hall, would not be able to finish the job and the government would have to invite him back. Hall also sought the advice of others, including architect Don Gazzard, who warned him acceptance would be a bad career move as the project would never be his own. Hall agreed to accept the role on the condition there was no possibility of Utzon returning. Even so, his appointment did not go down well with many of his fellow architects, who considered that no one but Utzon should complete the Sydney Opera House. Upon Utzon's dismissal, a rally of protest had marched to Bennelong Point. A petition was also circulated, including in the Government Architect's Office. Peter Hall was one of the many who had signed the petition that called for Utzon's reinstatement. When Hall agreed to the design role and was appointed in April 1966, he imagined he would find the design and documentation for the Stage 3 well advanced. What he found was an enormous amount of work ahead of him, with many aspects completely unresolved by Utzon in relation to seating capacity, acoustics and structure. In addition, Hall found the project had proceeded for 9 years without the development of a concise client brief. To bring himself up to speed, Hall investigated concert and opera venues overseas and engaged stage consultant Ben Schlang and acoustic consultant Wilhelm Jordan, while establishing his team. In consultation with all the potential building users, the first review of program was completed in January 1967. The most significant conclusion reached by Hall was that concert and opera were incompatible in the same hall. Although Utzon had sketched ideas using plywood for the great enclosing glass walls, their structural viability was unresolved when Hall took on the design role. With the ability to delegate tasks and effectively coordinate the work of consultants, Hall guided the project for over 5 years until the opening day in 1973. A former government architect, Peter Weber, in his book Peter Hall, The Phantom of the Opera House, concludes, when Utzon resigned, no one was better qualified than Hall to rise to the challenge of completing the design of the Opera House. In 1993, Konstantin Kukias was commissioned by the Sydney Opera House Trust in association with Rem Theatre to compose Icon, a large-scale music theatre piece for the 20th anniversary of the Sydney Opera House. During the 2000 Summer Olympics, the venue served as the focal point for the triathlon events. The event had a 1.5 kilometers (0.9 miles) swimming loop at Farm Cove, along with competitions in the neighboring Royal Botanical Gardens for the cycling and running portions of the event. Since 2013, a group of residents from the nearby Bennelong Apartments, better known as the Toaster, calling themselves the Sydney Opera House Concerned Citizens Group, have been campaigning against forecourt concerts on the grounds that they exceed noise levels outlined in the Development Approval (DA). In February 2017, the NSW Department of Planning and the Environment handed down a $15,000 fine to the Sydney Opera House for breach of allowed noise levels at a concert held in November 2015. However, the DA was amended in 2016 to allow an increase in noise levels in the forecourt by 5 decibels. The residents opposing the concerts contend that a new DA should have been filed rather than an amendment. The Sydney Opera House sales formed a graphic projection screen in a light show mounted in connection with the International Fleet Review in Sydney Harbour on 5 October 2013. On 31 December 2013, the venue's 40th anniversary year, a New Year firework display was mounted for the first time in a decade. The Sydney Opera House hosted an event, the biggest blind date, on Friday 21 February 2014 that won an historic Guinness World Record. The longest continuous serving employee was commemorated on 27 June 2018, for 50 years of service. On 14 June 2019, a state memorial service for former Australian Prime Minister Bob Hawke was held at the Sydney Opera House. On 5 October 2018, the Opera House chief executive Louise Heron clashed with Sydney radio commentator Alan Jones, who called for her sacking for refusing to allow Racing NSW to use the Opera House sales to advertise the Everest horse race. Within hours, NSW Premier Gladys Berejiklian overruled Heron. 2 days later, Prime Minister Scott Morrison supported the decision, calling the Opera House the biggest billboard Sydney has. The NSW Labour Party leader, Luke Foley, and senior federal Labour frontbencher Anthony Albanese had supported the proposal. The political view was not supported by significant public opinion, with a petition against the advertising collecting over 298,000 names by the 9th of October 2018. 235,000 printed petition documents were presented to the NSW Parliament in the morning. A survey conducted on the 8th of October by market research firm Micromex found that 81% of those surveyed were not supportive of the Premier's direction.